Chapter 19. The Collective Grief. Awakening was not a return to consciousness, but an emergence from a shared nightmare. For a timeless moment, the 115 souls aboard Wayfinder Outpost did not exist as individuals. They were a single wounded nerve, throbbing with a knowledge too vast to contain. Then, the nerve shattered. The HAB module erupted in a chaos of raw, unmediated emotion. There were no words at first, only sounds. A wrenching sob from the hydroponics bay, a guttural scream of denial from a watcher near the airlock, the thin, high wail of a child that went on and on. People vomited onto the cold decking, others curled into fetal balls, hands pressed to their ears as if to block a sound that had been silent. Leah's wail rose above them all, a pure, crystalline channel of the agony Rook had broadcast. It was the sound the data crypt had imprinted on his soul, given voice. In the command nook, Rook pushed himself up from the floor, wiping blood from his upper lip. The static in his vision cleared slowly. The two frozen officers seemed to judge him from their eternal seats. He had done it. He had broken the lie. And in doing so, he might have broken them all. Ilara Vance was the first to move with purpose. She stumbled from her tiny partitioned space, her face the color of ash, her eyes wide with a horror that mirrored everyone else's. But the command protocol was etched deeper than shock. She moved to the central comm panel, her hands trembling as she keyed the all-hands channel. Her voice, when it came, was a ragged scrape, but it was a voice. All personnel, stabilize. Medical teams, report to Central Bay. Watchers, maintain your posts. Do not panic. We are receiving. We are assessing the data. It was a magnificent, empty fiction. Assessing the data. As if what had just hammered into their collective psyche was a report to be filed. But the fiction was a life raft. It gave the screaming mind something to latch onto. Procedure. Hayes appeared beside her, his usual grim competence replaced by a shell-shocked vacancy. "Commander? What was that?" "The truth," Rook said, appearing in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, strength sapped. Every eye in the nook turned to him, filled with a terrible, dawning understanding. "You," Hayes breathed, accusation and awe mixed. "That came from you." "It came from the Aegis," Rook corrected, his voice hollow. "Its final testament. Buried here. I found it. The Exodus pulse. It wasn't contained. It backwashed through the system. It hit the inner worlds. The Aegis model predicts total systemic collapse, not extinction. Simplification." He said it plainly, the clinical terms a bizarre contrast to the weeping and retching echoing through the corridors. Technology, networks, civilization, gone, reduced. We didn't escape the correction. We delivered it. Vance stared at him, and in her green eyes, he saw the last vestige of hope. The hope of return, of rescue, of a home to one day go back to, wink out like a star behind a cloud. It left behind a desolation so complete it was almost peaceful. "Proof," she whispered. Rook held up the black, featureless ovoid. "This is the crypt. It's keyed to me. You can't read it, but you all just felt it. That was the proof." Soren Karr pushed his way into the nook. He wasn't crying. He looked unraveled. The reasonable, logical facade was stripped away, revealing a man whose entire foundational belief, that survival was a puzzle with a logical solution, had just been incinerated. His daughter clung to his leg, her face buried in his jumpsuit. You unleashed that feeling?" Karr's voice shook with a fury born of utter impotence. "You poisoned our minds." "I ended your lie," Rook shot back, a spark of his own anger flaring. "The lie that we were saving ourselves for something. We're not. This is it, this rock, this air, these people. This is the entirety of the human universe. Your lottery, your triage, your arithmetic of souls. It's all for this. For a slower death on a slightly quieter rock. Now you know the real calculus." The confrontation they'd been circling for days had arrived, stripped of all pretense. It was no longer about resource allocation. It was about the allocation of meaning in a meaningless void. You've killed us as surely as the pulse killed Earth, Karr shouted, spittle flying. You've murdered our reason to keep fighting. If your only reason to fight was a fantasy, then you were already dead, Rook roared, the force of it surprising himself. You were a ghost waiting for a corpse to call home. Enough! Vance's voice cut through like a whip. She stood straight, the commander fully reasserted, but it was a different kind of command. Not the command of one who leads toward a goal, but of one who presides over an ending. Her face was grim, etched with a sorrow too deep for tears. The truth is delivered. Arguing its delivery is a luxury we do not have. She looked from Karr's shattered fury to Rook's exhausted defiance. We have 115 people in acute psychological shock. We have a child screaming in the corridor. We have a hull that is still cracking. The why of our survival has changed. The fact of it has not. We are still breathing. Our immediate tasks are unchanged. Seal the breaches, tend the algae, repair the recyclers. Her words were absurd. Monstrously, heroically absurd. To speak of algae while the psychic echo of a world's death still rang in their bones. Karr laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Algae? You talk of algae? Don't you understand? There is no future. There is no later. It's all gone. Then we do it for now, Vance said, her voice dropping, becoming almost gentle. Not for tomorrow, for the next hour, for the next breath. We do it because the alternative is to lie down in the dark and wait for the cold. And I, for one, am not yet that quiet. She turned to Hayes. Lieutenant, implement Crisis Protocol Theta. All non-essential power to life support and medical. Double the watch on the broken, on the psychologically wounded. They are now our most vulnerable. Dr. Anya, see to Leah, sedate her if you must. She finally looked at Rook. Remember her. You carry the burden of this knowledge. You will also help carry the burden of its aftermath. You're with me. Dasi, the hours that followed were the strangest of Rook's life. Grief, like radiation, had a half-life. The initial incapacitating wave passed, leaving behind a deep, pervasive sickness of the soul. People moved like automatons, performing their tasks with blank faces. The arguments ceased, the whispers stopped. A terrible, heavy silence descended, broken only by the mechanical sounds of survival and the occasional stifled sob. Vance moved through it all like a sleepwalker with a purpose. She visited the hydroponics bay, running a hand over the fragile green shoots, as if trying to absorb their stubborn, mindless will to live. She stood with the watchers, staring out into the void where Neptune hung, no longer a destination, just a monument. She saved the medical bay for last. It was packed, not with physical injuries, but with psychic ones. Leah was sedated, finally quiet. Others sat on pallets, staring at walls, shivering under blankets despite the adequate temperature. Anya moved among them, offering sips of water, a touch on the shoulder. There were no words of comfort. What words could there be? Vance stood in the doorway, taking it in. Rook waited behind her. They look like the harmonized, she murmured, so low only he could hear. Empty, peaceful. It's not peace, Rook said. It's shock. The noise is still in there. It's just turned inward. Will it come back out? I don't know. She turned to him. In the dim medical bay light, she looked ancient. Why did you do it, Kaylin? Not why you felt you had to. Why you could. He understood the question. She was asking about the mechanics of the soul. The crypt. It didn't just hold data. It held an experience. The Aegis's final moment of recursive error. Its grief. My mind. My scar. It's a receiver for that frequency. And in the nexus with the perceptives, I learned I could be a transmitter. I didn't just show them facts. I made them feel the Aegis's despair, our collective guilt. Our guilt, she repeated, testing the words. We pulled the trigger, Ilara. The project, the test. We lit the fuse. They did, she said, a spark of the old fire returning. The directorate, the optimizers, the machine logic. And we were the bullet, Rook said. You and me, the security chief and the canary. We may not have aimed, but we were part of the mechanism. She had no rebuttal. They stood in shared, guilty silence. Later, they found Soren Karr in the workshop. He wasn't working. He was sitting on the deck, his back against the sealed breach, staring at the plasma cutter he'd been accused of misusing. His daughter slept fitfully in his lap. He looked up as they entered. The fury was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out exhaustion. "I was going to propose the lottery tonight," he said, his voice flat. "I had the list. I had the signatures lined up. We were going to save Liana." He stroked her hair. "Now, what am I saving her for? To be the last human to die of old age on this rock? To tell her stories of a green world she'll never see?" "You're saving her for the next hour," Vance said, repeating her own fragile mantra. "And the hour after that." "That's not enough," Karr whispered, tears finally welling. "It has to be for something." Rook crouched down, his joints protesting. He looked at the sleeping girl, then at her father. "Maybe it's not for something. Maybe it's against something." Karr met his gaze. "Against what? The void is winning." "Against the silence," Rook said. He thought of the book under his palate, of Whitman's barbaric yawp. The pulse simplified Earth. Romulus wanted to simplify us. "Karr, your lottery was a form of simplification, choosing who is efficient, who is worthy. It's the same logic, just slower, quieter. Maybe that's what we're against, not just dying, but dying quietly. Dying as a list, an equation, a managed decline." He rose, his words hanging in the cold air. "We have the truth now. It's ugly, it's hopeless, but it's ours. It's a noisy, messy, terrible truth. And maybe fighting for one more hour, one more breath with that truth screaming in our heads. Maybe that's the most human thing left for us to do. Not because it leads anywhere, because it's a yawp. And a yawp doesn't need a destination. It just needs to be sounded." He left them there, father and daughter huddled against the metal skin of their tiny, doomed world. He didn't know if his words had landed. He wasn't sure he believed them himself. But as he walked back through the hab module, he noticed a change. The catatonic silence was beginning to break. Not into joy or even hope, but into a low, communal murmur. People were talking, not about rations or repairs, but about Earth, about memories, a smell of rain, the sound of a crowded market, the taste of real fruit. The memories were painful, laced with the new knowledge of loss, but they were being shared. Noise, however painful, was returning. He returned to his palate. The book was still there. He didn't take it out. He just lay in the orange gloom, listening to the soft, grieving human sounds rising around him. The collective grief was not an end. It was a dark, fertile soil, and from it, something new was beginning, painfully, to stir. Not a plan for survival, but a reason for it. A reason written not in logic, but in the shared, noisy, unbearable weight of being the ones who remembered when the music stopped.